Today's video is sponsored by Audible. A lot of us are going to add read more to our New Year's resolutions, but most of us also say that we don't have time to just sit around and do so. Personally, I get around this with Audible while I'm trying to get my steps in or when using public transportation. I've been using this service for years now, and one of my favorite things about it is that I get a free credit each month, good for any audiobook regardless of price, and if I fall behind on my listening for whatever reason, the credits roll over to the next month so that I don't lose them. Best of all, you get to keep your audiobooks even if you cancel your membership. If you need a recommendation to get started, I'm going to suggest Stiff: The Curious Lives of Human Cadavers by Mary Roach. Start listening today with a 30-day Audible trial where you can get Stiff or any other title plus 2 Audible originals absolutely free. All you need to do is head to audible.com/reignbot or text reignbot to 500-500. Again, that's audible.com/reignbot, or you can text reignbot to 500-500. So for some time now, I've been seeing the name Kate Yup in my inbox appear over and over again. Admittedly, they were sprinkled in amongst a sea of other requests, so I kind of overlooked them. Recently, I sat down to brainstorm for my next video, and there it was again, Kate Yup. I figured it was time to give in, even if I'm a little bit late here. So first of all, who is Kate Yup? Again, before all this, I had no idea who she was, so I obviously had to start my search at her channel. As you can see, she's a mukbang YouTuber, mukbang, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, I'm not Korean, with over 500,000 subs, which honestly I'm a little bit surprised at since her videos generally pull in way more views than that. Unlike most others in her genre, she tends to obscure her face either with the camera angle or by wearing a blindfold. Odd, sure, but this alone doesn't necessarily point to anything sinister, so why is everyone asking if she's okay? In short, basically it's because people believe that she's been kidnapped or something like that, and she's being forced to make videos. Let's start with one of the aforementioned emails I got in regards to this topic to help us kind of get a complete overview of the situation.
I hope I caught your attention. I'm not sure if anyone's asked or mentioned Kate Yup. She's a mukbanger that started her channel about a year ago. Now, honestly, I don't know if she's in any actual danger, or if this is all some sort of ARG. Either way, some weird stuff's definitely going on. She wears a blindfold while she eats, and has visible scars and marks on her arms and mouth. She doesn't speak at all, and never drinks water. Well, at least not on camera. A lot of her viewers will point out concerns in the comments, like someone in the back of her videos rushing her to eat, cryptic messages of help, and so on. Anywho, I hope you look into it. I'd love to know what you think of the situation.
Now, everything in this specific email is a pretty good representation of what everyone's talking about, so let's look into everything one by one. The scars, her tendency not to speak or drink, and finally the supposed cryptic messages hidden within her content. Once all that is out of the way, we'll talk about Kate's response to all this, then go back and further discuss each point. So, starting with point 1. She does in fact have visible markings on her that you can see from time to time depending on what she's wearing. Many point out this example from June of 2019. If you were paying attention, you may have also noticed a mark on her lip, which people are assuming is some kind of wound. People also note the wristband she wears in every video, wondering if it could possibly be used to cover up even more markings. On to the next point. Kate indeed rarely speaks. At times, you can hear her whisper to greet the audience, but aside from that, generally not a single extra word is uttered. Instead, she uses text to get her point across. As highlighted by many, she in fact barely ever drinks on camera. Now, this one might sound a bit weird. I mean, she doesn't drink on camera, what's the big deal? Well, to those who point this out, it's seen as strange given her odd food choices, dishes many describe as unappealing. The idea that she'd scarf these down without feeling the need to drink just doesn't make sense to a lot of people. Next up, let's look into the so-called hidden messages. These are said to come in a number of different forms, but by far people have been most fixated on what they claim to be whispering in the background, Morse code made by Kate's tapping, and words decoded from the text seen within the videos. Take this, for example. If you scroll down, one of the top comments is this one, the user leaving timestamps to where they believe they heard whispers saying things like hurry up and just eat. Again, these leaning into the theory that Kate's being forced into doing this. If we take a step back a bit, specifically back to the video where people notice marks on Kate's body, we get this. People have been making the claim that this tapping is Morse code, specifically a message asking for help. something people believe is reiterated in another video where the first letters of a string of sentences are HELP. Now again, these are just a few examples of what people are freaking out about. If you head over to her channel and look in the comments, you'll notice wild theories being thrown left and right, and people even claiming to notice someone in the room with her. But what did Kate herself have to say about all this? Well, it seems these allegations actually started several months ago, so back in April of this year, Kate uploaded this. The video, simply titled "I'm Alive," features Kate in her usual routine, this time the intro text ensuring that she's okay. Scattered elsewhere are other responses from Kate in regards to the situation. For example, on her community tab, she posts this. She once again reiterates that she's completely okay and that no one is forcing her to do anything. She also mentions that the marks on her arm are from the sun, and that the one on her lip is simply a cold sore. As for the Morse code, beneath the video mentioned earlier, we find what appears to be a copy and paste comment left by Kate that explains that the tapping isn't Morse code and can't be Morse code due to how sporadic the tapping actually is, amongst other things. Despite all of this though, all of Kate's attempts to seemingly quell the situation, it still seems that most people aren't buying it. Most of the comments after this point seem to be people urging others to take this into their own hands, either by contacting police or YouTube themselves. Someone even went and left this on YouTube's help center. Beyond that, efforts have been made to find the identity of the girl under the mask, with many referring to other more permanent body marks, and later the eventual reveal that a tattoo is what's hidden under Kate's aforementioned wristband. Again, this was all coming to a peak a couple months ago, and even up until a few days ago, I'd been getting requests to talk about this, so without further ado, here's my take. Again, we're going to be going through each of the points as we did before, but I'm also going to be adding a few things here and there. Okay, so the markings or bruises on her arm. While they definitely are there, I personally can't tell if that's actually a bruise or just a discoloration, but if I'm being honest, to me it comes off like the second one. Of course, I do want to reiterate that this is just how it comes off to me, and I'm by no means an expert on this sort of thing. It doesn't seem to have the same color pattern as most bruises do, but that doesn't take into account that symptoms can vary based on the person. Just because it's not how I personally bruise, it may just be how she does. With that said, however, Kate herself did say this was normal for her, and that could very well be the case. There are just too many ways in which such a thing could occur, and to jump straight to she's been kidnapped is honestly a bit much. The claims about her lips simply having a cold sore are also entirely reasonable. Of course, the markings alone aren't what people are worried about. As we discussed, it's that plus things like her blindfold and the fact that she never speaks. Kate actually did address this in another video, that she wears a mask in order to conceal her identity, and I'm not entirely sure why this is such an unbelievable concept to people. There are so many different types of YouTube channels out there these days, and a growing number of them don't exactly want to deal with the pitfalls of fame. Not everyone is enamored by the idea of being recognized on the streets, and this isn't exclusive to YouTubers. Think of the many celebrities out there who either obscure their faces or identities, who have thousands, even millions of fans, who have no idea what they look like unless they go full stalker mode. So I checked her earlier uploads and the comments have been disabled. Once she turns them back on again, it's not long after that we start seeing her refer to these so-called haters. She even begins putting up a disclaimer that basically says how she eats may not be the most aesthetically pleasing thing in the world, but she enjoys it nonetheless. To me, it just seems like Kate's a private person who just wants to make eating videos. As for her tendency to not talk on camera, I think the explanation is fairly straightforward and people are willingly ignoring it for the sake of making this spookier than it is. In most places that I've come across while researching this video, describe Kate Yup as a mukbang channel, mukbang, whatever. And while that is true, it's only half the story. Kate's videos are also titled ASMR, which I don't feel like I really need to explain at this point given how huge and memed ASMR is. Obviously, the subsets of ASMR are limitless, but in general, the people producing the comment tend not to speak much, and when they do, they whisper just as Kate does. On to how Kate eats, more specifically why she tends to attack so-called unappetizing dishes, as people say. I'm no expert on the mukbang, but from what I understand, some of them just tend to be that way. There are those that come off more like simple taste test videos, but on the other end of the spectrum, we also get ones that are more extravagant, so to speak. Ones involving as much food as possible, eaten in the messiest ways possible. Now, in case you're thinking, but those people stuff themselves with tasty food, how could anyone bury their face in the stuff that Kate is eating? Consider this. people actually like seafood and fish. I believe that's technically her niche because I haven't seen a lot of other people doing stuff like that, although again, I'm not an expert at this stuff. Point is though, there are a lot of people out there who like the food Kate is eating. I get it, it's not a Big Mac, so it makes no sense to you, but take this for example. This is poke, a food I personally love from back home. This is what America has done to it because, raw fish is icky and all that, so best to cover it up and all that other crap. But for me, the best poke are the types with the best fish and sauce. Not really far off from what Kate has sometimes, actually. In fact, I've even joked that if I could just get slabs of fish and dip them in sauce, I would. So Kate, you're my spirit animal. Now, about the tapping and the hidden messages. I'm actually still on board with the pinned comment that Kate left. To me, there's just no way that could be Morse code or anything really intentional for that matter. It just looks to me like fidgeting that anyone does when they're sitting around doing whatever, and while I'm sure some people will leave me angry comments saying that doesn't make sense, trust me, just because you don't do it doesn't mean others don't. So what about the whispers in the background? So my take on this is that what people are hearing is the result of audio pareidolia. I've talked about such things in the past, but in case you don't know what it is, it's basically the human tendency to hear things that aren't actually there, like a ghostly voice, for example, during a ghost hunt. You're probably more familiar with the visual equivalent of this, where people tend to see faces where there are none, like the examples you see here. I'm even more convinced of this because if you do a quick skim of the comments, you'll notice that the ones where people are claiming to hear things don't start until relatively recently. The older comments are mostly normal and completely unassuming. Why? Because they weren't conditioned to be listening for anything spooky. Once you are, then you start noticing patterns that don't exist. You start mistaking simple inhaling and exhaling for a cry for help or a command to eat faster. Keep in mind, Kate does run an ASMR channel, so sound is kind of her thing, and she does make a lot of it. If you listen for long enough with expectations in mind, you're going to get the results you were looking for, whether they're real or not. Like I said, there are people who have been trying to figure out who Kate Yep actually is, and personally, I'm not going to do that, and let me explain why. Kate said that she didn't want her identity revealed, so if people are successful at this, then all you're really doing is doxing a girl and 100% setting her up for harassment. I can't emphasize that enough. I also want to add that when you speculate on her identity and maybe get it wrong, then you've suddenly dragged completely innocent bystanders into the shit show. Keep in mind, people are or were trying to get the police involved, and while I think it's a good idea to try to help someone you think is in need, it's important to do so responsibly so you don't end up accidentally ruining lives because you jumped the gun. The last thing I want to address is something that I didn't mention prior to this point, but it's something I'm 99% sure you guys want me to answer. Do I think this is an ARG? Actually, no, I don't. Which doesn't mean that the kidnapping rumors are true either. To me, this seems like a perfect storm of things that led to people thinking that this was something sinister. Mukbangs are popular, so is ASMR. It makes sense to combine the two, and in fact many other people do. Maybe the mask wasn't the best choice, but I can see her logic. She can try to film from the neck down, but doing so as an eating channel isn't exactly easy or practical. You're bound to have a slip-up at some point, and with something like a mukbang, you probably want to do as little editing as possible in order to keep the flow more organic. But anyway, this doesn't read ARG to me because it doesn't feel calculated in the way an ARG would. Personally, I think if this was supposed to be some kind of spooky project, there would have been something more deliberate placed into the videos. Something more concrete. So far, the only thing that kind of reads ARG or a creepy web series to me is the help message that we talked about earlier. That's really the only thing to me that seems like a deliberate plant that was meant to be noticed. What it comes off as, though, at least in my opinion, is Kate kind of leaning into things. She's already told people time and time again that she's fine, but if people aren't going to believe her, then why not play with it a bit? Who knows if that'll be a direction she takes moving forward, but to me, this whole situation reminds me a ton of when everyone was convinced that Marina Joyce was kidnapped for pretty much the exact same reasons. In case you missed that whole circus act a couple years ago, I did do a video on it and so did everybody else. In short, weird YouTube lifestyle guru girl makes a video where people claim to hear some kind of whisper in the background and then freak out and assume she's been taken hostage and forced to make videos. Sound familiar? This is literally exactly the same thing with a little blank room soup on the side for good luck. But anyway, I fully accept the fact that I could just be dead wrong about all this, but alas, I was asked for my take. I do want to just say that this video is rather late. I wrote it like a month ago and got it recorded, but put it on the back burner in favor of the Powell family video. Just wanted to let you guys know that I'm recording this after the entire rest of the video has already been edited, so this is a little bit of a time jump. But anyway, yeah, watch the Powell family video if you have not done that. Everyone loves a little bit of self-promotion. But anyway, it is now time to thank the Patreon support squad. T. Gorman and Connor H. would be the two top supporters, giving way more than they need to. I don't really know why you feel like supporting me so much, but I do heavily appreciate it, so I just wanted to give you a quick highlight. We also have Andrew, Danielle, Shadow, Jay, Garth, VHS Squid, Q, Shelby, Avocadros, Julian, Justin, Joel H., who is also a longtime supporter of the Patreon, Zerai, Guillerme, I still think I'm pronouncing your name wrong. I'm really sorry about that. Message me if I am. Eric, Lance, Esper, Nix, and next page, Rain, Raphael, Jeremy, Krista, Nick, and Ursula H. You guys are all amazing. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next year.